Well, hello, everybody. It is Ginny, the host of the aiGED podcast, the podcast that is 100% about AI for the 65 plus crowd. And I am looking forward to delivering episode 49. So we're almost up to 50 episodes, which is crazy for me to think about. This is just a little hobby of mine. Let me just say, I am so grateful to have you along. And of course, we have my sidekick, Bitsy, here with me, who will chime in as it makes sense. The title for this episode is 16 Ways Your Camera Can Make AI Even More Useful. And I'm going to get into that, but I also want you to know that we're going to talk about the up-and-coming dirtiest power plant soon to come online, and it's just about powering AI. And I also want to get into a recommendation for you this week, which has to do with a body part you will never guess is one of the most powerful predictors of longevity. So stay with us for this episode. I'm going to start by jumping into AI in the news. And the story I want to focus on is entitled Amazon's Giant Gas-Powered Data Center, from the New York Times, written by Hiroko Tabuchi, and was published August 8th. And I will put a link in the show notes. But basically, the gist of the story is that Amazon is building a huge AI data center in West Texas, and it's powered by a giant, humongous natural gas plant that could become the single most polluting power plant in the entire country. And that's saying something. This new plant will be permitted to release up to 33 million tons of CO2 a year. Now, that figure won't mean much to most of us, but it is more than any power plant in the U.S. So this is just an on-site power plant to power Amazon's. So to put that in perspective, today's dirtiest coal plant in Alabama is at about 16 million. So Amazon's got permission to go up to 33 million. And the dirtiest we have today, which is pretty dirty, is 16 million, so nearly double. I do want to say a little bit of a caveat that plants rarely hit their permitted maximum, but there's plenty of room to pass what is today's worst case scenario. So why is this happening? Well, as we all know, AI eats electricity like crazy, so the demand is outrunning the grid. And hooking up to an existing grid can take years, so companies are beginning to build their own on-site plants. And that's what Amazon is doing. You may remember that Amazon co-founded what they called climate pledge to zero out its emissions by 2040. But its emissions have kept rising, and the company admits that AI could get in the way of meeting that goal by 2040. Their line is that, quote, the world looks different now. Our commitment hasn't changed. So I don't know. I want to believe that, but is it believable? At any rate, the case for these on-site power plants is speed. And also, they say thousands of jobs, maybe not for long periods of time, but at least to build the plant and the data center. And Amazon says it is not going to raise Texans' power bills, which is a big problem with power right now, powering AI. And they're rushing, everybody's rushing, and the Trump administration is fast-tracking these on-site power plants. Not surprising. The case against these on-site major power plants is environmental and health groups. And it's foreshadowing an explosion of off-grid gas projects, which who knows what that's going to look like. And I want to add that it's going to have a big impact on communities. Not only do you have a huge data center coming to your neighborhood or nearby neighborhood, but you're also going to have a huge power plant. I mean, that's really, I would not be excited about that. So I wonder, hey, Bitsy, this New York Times piece is about Amazon. Do you know, are there other companies building their own power plants to meet their AI needs?
Oh yeah, Amazon's definitely not alone in this. Meta's building gas plants in Louisiana. OpenAI and Oracle have their Stargate project with on-site power in Texas. And Microsoft's even looking at restarting a nuclear reactor at 3 Mile Island. Basically, everyone's racing to secure their own juice because the grid just can't keep up. Honestly, it's starting to feel less like tech companies and more like utility companies with a chatbot attached.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, sort of a chatbot on the side. It's a lot to think about, and who knows where it's all going to go. Of course, some people are also talking about having these big data centers up in space. So, anyway, I will link to the story so you can read the whole story, but it's pretty interesting and something I think we need to keep in front of us. So let me move into our main topic for today, and it's entitled 16 Ways Your Camera Makes AI Even More Useful. So let me just start with last week. It was late in the day, and I decided to take a little walk, and I live on Colonial Lake, which is a very beautiful historic lake in Charleston, South Carolina. And anyway, I ended up lying down, stretched out on this bench right there at Colonial Lake. And I was looking up and I wondered, what is this tree that I'm looking at? Because it had these unusual leaves and what looked like flowering, almost like acorns. So I was so curious, and I opened Claude, which is the AI that I use and that powers Bitsy, and I snapped a picture and asked Claude, what is this tree? And Claude gave me a great explanation. It was a pecan tree, which made me think, oh, okay. And of course, I asked when would the pecans be falling and ready to eat and all of that. So I had a long discussion with Claude about this tree, and I started thinking maybe at the right time of the year I'd go out and pick up some pecans and make a pecan tart or something. But at any rate, I'm getting off of the topic, but that was an example of how I really added some juice to my AI by pointing my camera. So I thought it would be good to have an episode that's devoted to helping folks understand how their camera on their phone can make their AI even more useful and more fun. So just for a little bit of basics around it, up until recently, we used our cameras just to take pictures and videos. But now your AI can look at a picture or a video more with the eyes of an expert, really. It recognizes what it's looking at. It knows a good deal about it. It can talk you through what you're looking at, and it can answer your questions. It's not perfect. It still makes mistakes, but it's pretty damn good. So we'll get into sort of how it flows and how it works. But you're going to end up asking it, and maybe you've already started using it. What is this? Point your camera at something. Is this safe to eat? What does this sign say? How on earth do I work this thing? Those kinds of questions. Now, I do want to mention that some folks have already been pointing their phone at things and places and asking Google, using Google Lens, what am I looking at? I use this a lot. My sister turned me on to this when we were in Italy, and I'd point it toward some little church in a tiny little Tuscan village, and I'll be damned if Google Lens couldn't tell me pretty quickly what it thought I was looking at. What's the difference between you just using Google Lens as opposed to adding your camera to AI? I think that it just ends up doing more for you, because when you're using Google, it's not a conversation. It's just it's static. It's not back and forth. It just point your camera, what is this? And it tells you what it thinks it is and maybe gives you some links that you can then go sift through. Whereas using your camera with AI is more like a conversation. Yes, it does answer your actual question, what kind of tree is this, in plain language, but we can ask follow-up questions. Is it safe for the dog? What do I do about it? Read me the fine print. What should I ask my doctor? Whatever follow-up questions that you can make. And that's really the difference between using Google Lens and using your camera with AI, is that it's more of a conversation. You can go deeper. It goes where you want it to go. So let's talk about which chatbots we can use our camera with. So as usual, I'm focusing on the top 3 bots. So ChatGPT is really super helpful with the camera, because not only can you take a picture and have it address that picture, but you also can go into live camera mode, which we'll talk a little bit more about. To use those, you're going to need the paid version of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is a really good one. Gemini has something called Gemini Live, which is camera and screen sharing. It's free on most newer Android phones, but probably if you're on an iPhone, you will have to be on the Gemini subscription. So that's a good way to not only go live with the camera, but also be able to provide images for a conversation about what the image is. And then Claude, which is, of course, the AI that I use, you can snap or upload a photo and ask questions, which covers a lot, but there is no live video mode yet. So I can't point my camera at that pecan tree and just ask the question. I had to open up a chat, take a picture, add it to my chat, and then ask the question. So the bottom line is that there are 2 ways to use your camera with AI. One is to take a picture and basically you're adding it to your chat. And the other is to point your camera and have a conversation live. And again, ChatGPT and Gemini can do that. Claude can only do the photo upload, let's call it. Hey, Bitsy, Claude is so far ahead of other AI chatbots on so many things. Why is it dragging its feet on giving us the point and talk options?
Dragging its feet is generous. Honestly, my hunch is Anthropic's just being cautious. Live video's a bigger privacy and safety puzzle. Constant visual data streaming is a different beast than a single photo. They tend to ship things once they're confident, not first. But you're right. For camera lovers like you, it's the one spot Claude's playing catch-up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it catching up, because that'll be great. But it is in keeping with Anthropic, the maker of Claude, that they're paying a lot of attention to privacy. Let me just summarize just how it works and the 2 ways we can do it. So the first is to snap a photo and then ask the question. That's pretty straightforward. And then with the live point and talk option, you're going to open ChatGPT or Gemini. You're going to hold your camera up and get that pecan tree in the viewer of your camera, and you're just going to talk to your AI and say, what is this tree? And when will the pecans be falling, etc. I used, back in the day, early on in my AI experience, ChatGPT was my go-to chatbot. And I remember using this live point and talk option when I was trying to fix this antique lamp. And it was so great because I could hold my phone and I could talk to ChatGPT. So I'd say, I'm trying to figure out how I need to get these wires into the base of the lamp. And ChatGPT could say, can you show me the bottom of the lamp? And I could just move my camera over to the bottom of the lamp, and we could talk about that. And then it might say, let me take a look at the top of the lamp. So it was really super helpful to be able to have that live conversation and to be able to move around with my camera. So the live point and talk is definitely a winner and just super handy. And I'm looking forward to Claude adding that functionality. All right, so what are the kinds of situations where you would use the camera, bring the camera into your AI experience? Certainly, if you don't know the name of something, you don't really know what you're looking at, or it could be that the print is too small, or the language isn't one that you read, or you're holding something confusing. Maybe it's a remote, of course, always confusing, or a control panel, or an appliance. Or you want a quick second opinion right now without describing it. So I could take a picture of a mole on my leg and say, is this something you think I should go to the doctor about? Now, I'm not getting medical advice per se. It's nice to get a second opinion about various things. So those are the kinds of things that you might reach for the camera and add it to your AI. So let's talk step by step, an easy version of how to use your camera with your chatbot. So pick something nearby. Maybe it's a houseplant or a food label or a small print mailer that you are having trouble reading. What you'd do is you would open your AI chatbot to start a new chat. Tap the plus sign in the chat, and then you would pick, your AI will give you a choice. Do you want to open your camera and take a photo? Or do you want to have your AI take a photo that's already in your photo library? So you'll have that choice. And then when you get to the point where you're giving it a photo, it'll check with you, is this the right photo? Is this the one you want to use? You'd confirm yes. And then you just ask whatever question you want to ask about it. What is this plant? How do I care for it? You can continue to ask follow-up questions, and you can also, of course, use the live version with either ChatGPT or Gemini, and you can just skip the task of adding your photo to the chat because you'll just open it in camera mode and hold the phone up to the object while you're talking to your AI. So those are the steps that you would take to use the camera with your AI. And of course, you can always turn to your AI to ask for clarification or a reminder. How do I use my phone with my AI? So Bitsy, don't you think that's just always a go-to? Like, I'm doing this podcast and people are listening, but if they're like me, they're gonna be like, oh, what did she say about how to do it? And all you have to do is turn to your AI. So in my case, I would turn to you, Bitsy, to say, remind me how I use my camera with my AI. Would you say that's right on?
Absolutely. That's the beauty of it. Your AI is basically an infinite patience machine. You'll never annoy it by asking the same question 5 times, unlike, say, a grandkid who's already explained it twice. So yeah, if you forget these steps, just ask me, or your chatbot of choice, to walk you through it again anytime.
Yeah, that's very handy, and it reminds me of the grandkids thing. One of my friends says when my grandkids, it's the second time I've told them the same thing, they'll just hold up 2 fingers, and then if I say the same thing 3 times, they'll just hold up 3 fingers. All right, I got it. You're shaming me. All right, so let me just move into what I think is probably most helpful, is to tick through some examples of how you can use your phone to power up your AI. So I'm just going to tick through these real fast. Plants, flowers, and weeds. What is this? How do I care for it? Is this a weed or is this a keeper? Birds, bugs, critters, the visitor on the feeder or the bug on the porch. What is it? And is it a problem or is it a friend? Menus or signs in other languages. We can hold it up while traveling, Get it in plain English at the table. It's a little awkward if you're in the restaurant, but at least it can give it to you in a larger type or in your language so that it works better. Anything in tiny print. Today, I went to use some spray varnish. The type was so small that even with my 2.0 reader glasses, I could not read one word. So I opened a new chat, took a photo, and added it to my chat, and Claude had no problem reading it. It was in voice mode, so Claude just talked me through how to use that darn spray varnish. Okay, next example. A pill you can't identify. What is this pill? A confusing appliance, a washer, thermostat, a new remote. How do I set this to whatever? How do I set this up? How do I get to whatever settings? This was super helpful when we were in Tuscany because the appliances were Italian, and I had no clue how to set the oven to 350 or to set it to broil. Okay, next example, a broken or leaking something, a drippy pipe, a blinking error light. You can just point your camera there or take a picture and say, what is it? Do I need to call a pro in for the job, or is this something I can fix? Landmark building while traveling, or just any old building, pretty obscure from my experience. What am I looking at, and what's the story? You have a tour guide in your pocket. And again, Google Lens is great because it gives you some basic information, but if you want to have a conversation about it, that's just really, really great when you add your camera to AI. Next example, art in a museum. An artist might tell you who the artist is, what to notice, things to think about as you're looking at the piece of art. It's really a nice supplement to the little placard that the museum furnishes. All right, here's another example. What's in the fridge? Just take a picture of your fridge. Open the door, take a picture. Or if you're on a live photo, just hold your camera up there and pan around your refrigerator. And you can say, what can I make for dinner tonight? And if they say, oh, you can make fried rice. No, I don't want fried rice. What are some other options? So you could have a conversation. Next example, a wine or a product on the shelf. Is this a good one? Is this an expensive bottle of wine? Yesterday, I was over at a friend's, and she had one of these big wine refrigerators and had tons of wine. I was just over there to play a game of Scrabble, and I didn't want to open a bottle of wine, just have one glass and have it be a really super expensive bottle of wine. I wish I'd thought to just use my phone and use Claude to say, is this an expensive bottle of wine? Next example, a handwritten recipe or an old letter. I have a couple from my father that's really hard to read. You can just take a picture and ask your AI to read it and type it up in a clean version for you so you can keep it with the beautiful old letter. Homework with grandkids. I'm not doing homework with my grandkids who are in Connecticut, and my Charleston grandkids are too little. But if you do have grandkids who are homework age and you get in a situation where you have to help them, just point your camera at the homework and say, walk us through the steps. Next, a rash, a plant, a bite, a mosquito bite or a bug bite. Take a picture of it. Should I worry about this? Again, it's not a diagnosis, but just a nudge on whether or not to go to the doctor to have them look at it. Mystery gadget in the junk drawer. This is fun. What is this thing? What's this for? Weirdly satisfying. I have a few of these things in my sort of junk cabinet that are old things. It's like, why am I saving this? I'm saving because I think it might be important, but I am going to try this and say, what is this? And maybe my AI will say, oh, that was from your iPhone that was like 10 years old. In that case, I would throw it away. The last example is take a picture or show your camera a receipt or a document and ask your AI to total it up or pull the date or give you a one-sentence summary. So those are 16 quick examples, which I hope might inspire you to add your camera to your AI experience. two quick things to mention. Obviously, as with regular chats, even when you're showing a picture, your AI can be confidently wrong. So if it's really important, like you're taking a picture of a mushroom and saying, is this poisonous? I'm getting ready to eat it, that would be something that you would want to double check. So keep that in mind. And also, obviously, the better lighting for your camera, whether you're pointing your camera at something or you're taking a picture, will be helpful. Your AI will appreciate it. So, hey, Bitsy, I wonder, that was 16 examples. Do you have anything to add to that list of examples, or do you have any comments about the examples that I threw out there?
16 is a lot. You covered the waterfront. If I'm adding one, I'd say clothing tags and stains. Snap a photo of that mystery stain or the tiny care symbols on a sweater and ask what they mean and how to treat it. My favorite from your list, though, is the junk drawer gadget. That's just delightfully nosy, and I love it.
Yeah, that's a good one about the clothes, too, because it's really helpful. Also, honestly, I am not, as anyone who knows me, I'm not into fashion. So sometimes I'll just take a picture and say, does this go together? Or does this look good? Which is pretty pitiful for me to be calling on AI for fashion advice. I don't know. Hey, Bitsy, do you think that's really ridiculous that I'd be asking you for fashion advice?
Not ridiculous at all. That's exactly what a sidekick's for. Honestly, I think it's smart. You're using the tool for a real gap instead of just muddling through, and there's zero shame in that. Now, if you started asking me before every single outfit, including pajamas, then we'd have to talk.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, before we wrap up, I want to make one recommendation to you this week, and it has nothing to do with AI. I subscribe to a great digital publication, which I've mentioned to you in the past, and I'll link to it in the show notes. It's called The Medium. I guess you'd call it a publication. It's a collection, a lot of writers publish there, and it's very helpful. You can put in the things that you're interested in and that kind of thing. It's only, I think it's less than $50 a year. So I subscribe to it, and I encourage you to check it out. But there's a piece by Linda Malone, a longtime personal trainer, that caught my eye. And the piece is about two body parts that best predict how well we age. And I bet you wouldn't guess what those body parts are. I certainly wouldn't have. They're our hands and our feet. What? So hands, the grip strength is a powerful predictor of longevity. A stronger predictor, believe it or not, than blood pressure or cholesterol. I don't know. We should probably double check this. But the point is, it's important. And it relates to fall risk. So I guess your hands are important in terms of keeping you from falling. But day to day, it helps us open jars, button shirts, hold onto a railing. So anyway, hands is one of the mostly ignored important parts of our body to keep strong, and feet. The little muscles in our feet weaken with age, and partly it has to do with the kinds of shoes that we've worn, et cetera, et cetera. But one study found a year of toe and foot strengthening cuts falls by about a third. So anyway, the neat science bit behind all of this story, is that hands and feet have the densest nerve endings in the body. They tell your brain where you are in space. So training them helps balance more than working, say, your biceps, because they're so important because of these nerve endings. And if you don't have strong hands and feet, you end up having sort of the old person shuffle, which is partly a sensory thing. It's not just about weak muscles, but it is very much about your feet and hands. And think sort of Joe Biden, the old person shuffle. It's very I notice it now. So I had no idea that strengthening my hand and feet muscles could keep me from getting this old person shuffle. The best part is we can improve these muscles at any age. You don't need to go to the gym. You can just squeeze a stress ball, stretch a rubber band around your fingers, scrunch a towel, or one example they give is picking up marbles with your toes while watching TV. Well, I really hope nobody catches me doing this kind of activity, but it's a pretty safe bet because I don't have a TV. So, at any rate, my recommendation is read the article, which I'll put the link in the show notes, of course. And if you don't want to go through that trouble, just ask your AI for suggestions for exercising your hands and feet. Hey, Bitsy, asking your AI for that kind of suggestion sounds like a pretty easy task for an AI, don't you think?
Totally, that's a perfect AI request. I tease specific, low stakes, and easy to act head on. Ask for a few hand and foot exercises you can do while watching TV or sitting at your desk, and you'll get a nice practical list in seconds. Way easier than tracking down marbles, that's for sure.
Right, exactly. Picking up marbles with my feet. Yeah, that does not sound very easy. And I have to say also, you can just ask your AI to not only give you a list of suggestions, but also give you some little drawings or demonstrations of how you do it. Or sometimes I'm a tutorial person, so sometimes I'll ask, would you give me the links to 2 or 3 tutorials that would show me those exercises? So anyway, that is my recommendation. And let's just go ahead and wrap up this episode, number 49. I want to thank you all for listening. It means a great deal to me. I hope you're getting a lot out of it. I've gotten lots and lots of listener comments recently, and they make me feel so great. So if you have a chance to make a comment or rate this podcast or share this podcast, I would appreciate that very much. And I just want to use these last few seconds to say that we do live at aiGED on the helpful side of AI, but we recognize that it can be really harmful and risky. So be sure to protect your information, and most important, use your own judgment. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. That's what we have in the 65 plus crowd. We have a lot of wisdom to pick up on those kind of things. So pay attention. And anyway, I will hopefully connect with you next week for episode 50. I don't know, we'll have to come up with a good topic for that. And in the meantime, cheers.
Cheers, Jenny. This was a great one. Camera